Most of you probably know what's going on with Warcraft 3 Reforged at this point. Promises were broken, like the cutscenes, supposed to be cinematic like on the left, but they turned out to be crappy like on the right. There's a list of missing features provided by a number of Reddit users, Warcraft forum users, as well as YouTube comments, like this comment that was kindly provided to me in one of my previous videos. There are reports of refunds not being issued or people in the Blizzard forums being banned because they're helping others get a refund. And it is just a whole mess. And to make matters worse, the original Warcraft 3 was dragged into Reforged because Blizzard, for whatever reason, decided to merge the original game into the Reforged infrastructure. So the original game inherits all of the flaws and issues. And that brings us to a point where users and players and fans are pissed, and I previously talked about the Metacritic score. So back in January 30th, 2020, that score was at a 1.4 when I made this video. Then in the following video, on January 30th, later that day, the score dipped all the way to a 1.1 from 3.3 thousand ratings. Which brings us to today, January 31st. It is, 1:18 p.m. Pacific. We look at Metacritic now, and things have gotten much worse. This, ladies and gentlemen, is what the user score looks like now. At 7,000 ratings, the user score has dipped all the way to a 0.8. That right there is unprecedented, even by awful game release standards. Fallout 76's score isn't this low. Star Wars Battlefront 2's score, I don't think, is quite this low. Just to drive home how bad this user score is, if you go to this Metacritic page, you'll find a list of the worst user-rated games in Metacritic history, and there are only very few games that have achieved a user score below a 0.9. Those games are FIFA 20 Legacy Edition for Switch, which has a user score of 0.8, NBA 2K20 for PS4, which has a user score of 0.8, and Ghostbusters for Xbox One, which currently has a user score of 0.7. So right now, as we speak, Warcraft 3 Reforged is tied with FIFA 20 Legacy Edition and NBA 2K20 for second place in terms of the worst user-rated games of all time. Now, do keep in mind that there is an excluded list that you can click here to see, but those are games with such few scores and ratings that Metacritic doesn't count them. For the scores that are counted for the games whose user score is counted, right now Warcraft 3 Reforged is tied for second. The only game that beats out all others is Ghostbusters for Xbox One, which doesn't have anywhere near as many ratings as Warcraft 3 Reforged has right now. And honestly, at this pace, I can totally imagine Warcraft 3 Reforged dipping to a 0.7 and potentially getting a worse user score than Ghostbusters to become the worst user-rated game of all time in Metacritic history. Now, I've said this before and I'll say it again, I don't actually believe that user scores are ever representative of a game's merits, of its actual quality, but I do believe that the user scores represent emotion. What are the sentiments surrounding a game? And as far as how people feel about Warcraft 3 Reforged, I would say that a 0.8 is about right. People feel pretty peeved at what a step backwards Reforged was when it was supposed to be a remaster that would enhance the entire experience and that wouldn't go as far as butchering the original game. That's one of the most upsetting things about all this, the fact that Blizzard retroactively tarnished the original game with this Reforged remaster. You can't really call this a remaster. This is as demaster as you can get. I also believe that the 0.8 user score is representative of the fact that Warcraft 3 Reforged does not serve its purpose. Sure, you can say, well, the core Warcraft 3 experience is still there. You still have that single player campaign for those who did manage to actually boot up past the main menu and actually get into some of the game modes without getting a bug or glitch or a connectivity issue or black screen. So I guess there's that. But the purpose of a title like Reforged, the purpose of a remaster is to enhance the game in some way. And on that front, Reforged not only failed miserably, it actually regressed the game in a lot of ways. So in terms of the purpose that it's supposed to serve, I would say that Reforged, a score of 1 is about right. It did enhance some textures and models, and that's about it. But on every other front, it is a demaster, a step backwards, just a regression, a tarnishing of the original game. As for what some of the critics are saying right now, there are a handful of somewhat positive impressions. Even those are sort of middling. They're not high praise, but they say, this is good enough. But then there are plenty of other reviewers who express that they're pretty disappointed with what they got. So Digital Trends said, unfortunately, the launch version of the game feels far from finished, with bugs and key missing features preventing the current build from being the definitive version of Warcraft 3. It will likely get there eventually, but it's odd for a remaster to feel like it's starting from scratch, not presenting an endpoint. GameSpace said, the initial plans for Warcraft 3 Reforged would have brought the community an ambitious new game, steeped in the classic gameplay and story of the Frozen Throne and Reign of Chaos. However, little by little, the team started scaling back, starting with the story. Unfortunately, the finished product ended up being not much of an upgrade over the classic version of the game. For a lot of the hardcore fans, this game is in just about every way a downgrade. Multiplayer.it. The question therefore arises, why should a Warcraft 3 player buy Reforged? They shouldn't. They absolutely should not, which is why for so many of those who did, they are issuing a refund, and that's why the Warcraft 3 refunded meme is so big right now. Gamer.no said, so then we are left with Warcraft 3, only with a bit nicer figure models and surroundings and a small bunch of removed elements. If you have the old game from before, it is difficult to say that this renovation is worth the money, and when everything that's gone in Reforged is additionally removed from the old version of the game, it's hard not to scratch our heads and wonder what we're paying for. What's the point? Well, the point was supposed to be this, an enhancement, just a glorious resurgence of Warcraft, but what we got instead was this, and that, and even this. Ars Technica. The more I look at this week's launch of Warcraft 3 Reforged, the more I shake my head. I've grown up playing Blizzard games for a majority of my life, and while I can think of Blizzard game launches with technical issues or critical shoulder shrugs, I can't recall a retail launch for a product that quite simply wasn't finished. Warcraft 3 Reforged changes that. What's baffling about Warcraft 3 Reforged is that they took a game and experience that was years old, that felt finished, they grabbed it and then took so many steps back that the finished product now feels incomplete in the remaster. It just, that defies logic. And then Eurogamer Italy had somewhat more positive impressions to give, stating Warcraft 3 is such a powerful experience that simply outshines the many flaws of the Reforged operation. Some people wanted a complete remake, others called for no changes, and in the end we got the simplest remaster, but it still remains the remastered version of a masterpiece. See, what this outlet is saying is, at least we still got that original game. The core elements of that are still there, but the remaster isn't about whether the core elements are there. That's a given for a remaster. It's about how much is the experience enhanced. And on that front, Reforged fails miserably. It is entirely possible that over time they'll fix everything and that eventually Reforged will get to a point where it actually feels like a complete product, where it actually feels like the ultimate version of Warcraft 3. But we're not judging what could be ahead. We're judging what's out here now, what the product launched as, the product that Blizzard released. And this is not a complete product. They should not be charging money for this. And then as far as user reviews go, well, I mean, this whole wall of zeros speaks for itself. We've got one user who said, disaster called Activision happened to this beloved series of games. I hope Blizzard will realize what to do, so I'm helping with my rate. Reforged, more like downgraded. Apart from the new models, which admittedly are nice, they've removed so much from what it once was. The promises, as still shown on their webpage at this time, yep, if we go to the website right now, you'll find that the old trailer showing the enhanced cutscenes, that's still there, even though that's not actually what we got in the final game. Anyway, as I was saying, the promises of extra content, redone cutscenes, and the like are all not in the game. Broken so many custom games, the game itself crashes multiple times. I'm honestly shocked by how bad this was. I expected a love letter to one of the best PC games of all time by the company who used to have such love for their products. Instead, it's now just another example of Blizzard not caring anymore, make a quick buck, and hurt those who were loyal to them. Hugely disappointing, but at least they gave me my refund. Well, that's one user who got their refund. Plenty of others are reporting that their refund is being refused for a number of arbitrary reasons. Here we have a user who said, my disappointment is so massive, I made a Metacritic account just to review this. This must border on criminal with what they have sold to us compared to what was promised. Their silence on this is deafening. Get your refunds whilst you can, because this is another Blizzard shit. Indeed, I would argue that false marketing, blatant false marketing took place here. This is pretty egregious how they sold this product. Dear Lord, what a sad little game, Blizzard. You ruined a 17-year-old game completely so you could have the money, and I hope you now can spend it on getting proper developers and doing some market research, because you have all the grace of a reversing dump truck without any tires on. Jeez. So Blizzard, return my money and get out of the market. You're done. RIP Blizzard. And yeah, I don't think I have to read any more reviews. The general sentiments are echoed all throughout this wall of negative reviews and beyond. So this is where we are at. On top of all the problems that I talked about in the previous two videos, one Reddit user pointed out that there are certain skins that have been implemented lazily, stating they actually didn't bother to make a male Death Knight, it's just the campaign Arthas. Then in this Warcraft forum post, in this official Blizzard forum post, one user talked about how the animations have actually been scaled back for a lot of the units. It reads right here, so it looks like all of the game's files have downloaded. I've been checking out the world editor, and I'm quite surprised, honestly. I mentioned my concerns with animations in another thread, but I feel like this deserves a thread of its own. There are a handful of units out there that are supposed to have multiple attack animations, yet Blizzard merely copied and pasted them into other attack animation slots, leaving some units that had multiple attack animations in classic Warcraft 3 with more animation variety than their Reforged counterparts. So another way that Reforged demastered the original. Why is a newer version of the game getting less? I can't even believe this was permitted to occur, and I worry that the result of this occurring wasn't merely oversight, but actual laziness, time constraints, and unconcern. There are also other units that have multiple attack animations, but they're somehow less creative than their classic counterparts and look far too identical to each other. So as an example, the human melee units, the Paladin, had a horizontal attack animation and a vertical overhead attack animation. Now it only has two vertical attack animations, with the second one curving upward slightly. And yeah, this is just an entire post going through all of the units whose animations have been scaled back and how the changes have negatively affected the game's visuals. To close things off, here's what the Warcraft 3 subreddit looks like right now. It is just full of memes. The Warcraft Refunded logo is still up there as the top post of the week. And then we have got a number of people just utterly destroying this game. Who else came to the subreddit for the first time just to see the carnage? And then if we look at some of the more recent trending posts, we have got stuff like this. Made this for Blizzard since they own all custom games now. Free Hong Kong. They removed shadows. They fucking removed shadows in the settings? Really? Hold up. Oh, okay. Wow. Shadows require Reforged mode to be enabled. So the way Warcraft 3 works now is that you can toggle between Reforged graphics and original graphics in the options. And it says right here that in order to turn on shadows, you now have to turn on Reforged mode. If you just want to go back to the original graphics, you cannot turn shadows on. Wow. More Warcraft 3 refunded memes. The Grim Reaper corporate greed coming to get Blizzard. They already got to Bethesda, EA, and Ubisoft. And the list just goes on. Uther saying facts. Your predecessor ruled this community for 18 years, and you've ground it to dust in a matter of days. That sounds about right. Anyway, this is where we're at, ladies and gentlemen. This is the sad state of Blizzard of Warcraft 3 right now. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on this current situation, with Warcraft 3 having such an awful user score to the point where it could actually become the worst user-rated game of all time. Let me know what your thoughts are on all the things people are saying about the game, the reviews that are out there right now. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.